Hey everybody, welcome back. I am Cyborg, joined by Temp, and we are reviewing Halloween H20. We're reviewing all the movies in the Halloween series leading up to the new Halloween. So if you haven't checked out the previous reviews, make sure you go and do that. And if you haven't watched the movies, I would advise doing that before listening to the reviews, because we will get into spoilers. With that said, let's jump right into the movie. So this one, we start off with Mr. Sandman, a nice callback to Halloween 2, and you instantly see the knife plunge down into the pumpkin, so we get sort of a pumpkin, it's not like the opening credits where you're flashing around a pumpkin or anything like that, but you get a nice, cool callback to the franchise in general with the pumpkin, and you see all the kids going crazy, running around in the neighborhood, excited for Halloween, carving a jack-o'-lantern, all of that good stuff. It just seemed like a lot of fun, kind of building up that atmospheric mood that we talked about in Halloween 4. What'd you think?
Obviously Mr. Sandman was cool. I feel like Halloween 2 is almost more important than Halloween 1 in terms of what influenced this movie. So yeah, it's very fitting. And like, honestly, as much as I kind of rag on Halloween 2 a lot, the Mr. Sandman stuff was cool. So I liked it. It was good.
Yeah, it was a good part of Halloween 2 for sure. Love the callback to Mr. Sandman. We get quite a few callbacks to the original throughout this film, actually, beyond Halloween 2. So I'll kind of point those out as we go, as well as some homages. So yeah,
there's like a million Loomis scares in this movie, even though there's no Loomis.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll probably get to that.
So we've got. Anyway, so we got the opening there, and then we get some opening credits, and the credits are narrated by Dr. Loomis. Was that Donald Pleasance? Did that sound like him to you?
I don't think so. It did sound like that to him, but I don't really have a good ear for that. But I thought there was a narrator casting in the credits I saw.
And it wasn't Donald Pleasance, or was Donald Pleasance?
I don't think it was him, but that could have been referencing someone else. I don't recall any other narrator. So I feel like it's got to be him.
I mean, it was all, like, it was his lines, and it was him explaining the backstory. They redid the lines from Halloween 1 and all that. It just, I don't know, it just sounded weird to me. It did not sound, like, it sounded like a guy trying to be Donald Pleasance. It just didn't sound quite right. Let me look it up here and see if he has any sort of credit on IMDb real quick.
Well, I know in the new one, they did hire a Donald Pleasance voice mimic. So they're doing that for the new movie, which, only makes sense.
Yeah. I don't know about that. Like, you could have just, for this specifically, you could have just reused his lines. I mean, why not just reuse his lines from the original? Maybe there's a reason for it. It said voiceover is Tom Kane, so...
That's what I saw. That sounds right.
Yeah, so that would not be Donald Pleasance, which makes sense to me just because, like I said, it didn't sound quite right like him, so I'm not shocked that it wasn't him, but I am shocked that they wouldn't just reuse his lines. I don't know. Maybe there's a legal reason. Maybe they wanted clearer audio that they couldn't get from the original. I have no idea, but just odd.
I'm almost positive it's the latter. I don't think there's legal reasons just because the producer has been pretty consistent throughout all the movies. But I know, like in a lot of gaming, they have to re-record lines when they remaster a game because when they scale up the audio for the remasters, you can hear like cars driving by the studio in the background, and It just doesn't work. So they have to re-record everything. So it makes sense.
All right. Well, either way, so we get the opening credits. Like the credits do come in with Dr. Loomis kind of giving his lines there, and they do a lot of flashes to newspaper articles, etc. And we see here Nurse Marion. This actually happens before the credits, but Nurse Marion, who is once again from the original Halloween as well as Halloween 2. I believe it's the same actress as well. And she's brought back. She has realized that somebody broke into her home. She goes to get some kids next door, or I guess she runs into them. And then I did notice that there was like the dark car that was parked outside of it in the driveway. It looked a lot like the one that Michael Myers drives in Halloween 5, that he takes from Mikey. I thought that was interesting. I don't think it's the same type of car or even the same color, but it kind of resembled it. It was just kind of a fun little callback, even though I believe this movie is to retcon the whole Halloween 4 and 5, so as well as 6. So I'm sure if anything, it was just a nice little nod, but yeah.
Well, that was confusing too, and maybe we'll get more into that later, but I had a feeling that was going to be the case. I remember someone telling me that before, but they show in the credits the paper clipping of, Laurie Strode died in car wreck.
Right.
And I'm thinking, don't they reference the car wreck in part 4? But that doesn't make, I don't know. I was confused by that.
Yeah,
but anyway.
it retcons it, but at the same time, they do have like an homage. I mean, I think they even show like the scissors that Jamie used to stab her mother-in-law or whatever. So I don't know. From my understanding, it's there to retcon it, but it doesn't. Maybe it pays homages to it. It gives it a little nod. I'm not quite sure, honestly. But yeah. But then you run into the Laurie Strode had a daughter and then just abandoned her, or what? I mean, then that's when things get awkward and weird. So
I have a theory about that, where the reason why they told Jamie she died in a car wreck is because that's not what happened at all. She was clinically deemed unfit to be a mother, and they took Jamie away.
It's possible.
That's what my headcanon says, but I don't even know what the producers know. It's one of those things where, and that doesn't explain Josh Hartnett's character at all. So I don't know how far that theory could go, but that's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, anyways, so Marion, I think that's her name, Marion, the nurse, either way, from part 1 and 2. So if I get the name wrong, well, she's a nurse from part 1 and 2. And so she ends up getting killed by Michael. And I do like, this is kind of our first introduction to Michael once again. And he's standing in the background out of focus. So this is the Michael I like. They don't really announce his presence, though they do later on in the film. So I'll kind of gripe about that a little bit. But yep, so she gets killed and the police are in the house next door while she's getting killed. So no bueno, which was odd because why they wouldn't hear her screaming and knock out the window while they just went inside the other house is beyond me. It didn't sound like there's a ton of noise going on, but whatever. Movie.
Well, that was frustrating too, because she took him down. She was almost there, and It's not really clear why she couldn't. I don't know. I would have if you got him on the ground, I would have gone for the door, not the window. But that's me.
I don't know. Silly Marion. So then we kind of flash forward a little bit here, and the next thing I had noted down is Michael's car essentially dies, and then a mother and her child, her daughter, are going to a rest stop to the bathroom, and they're driving this old truck, and they're in the men's bathroom because the women's is closed or whatever, and so they go in there. And this is actually an effective scene, I thought, because, man, I feel like that's relatable because how vulnerable would you feel in that situation when her daughter's in one stall and she's in the next one, and then she starts to see a shadow of somebody, and then she looks through like the little peephole or like the cracks in between the stall doors and sees that there's a guy in a mask. Like, that would creep me the fuck out. Like, yeah. I would be losing my shit. Which good thing I'm
Rest stops are already gross, horrible places. So if you stack that on top of it, it's not great.
So yeah, I just thought that was a really well done location for that. I just thought it was, like I said, it was very. She was vulnerable for several reasons. Even if it was just her alone, she would have been vulnerable. But then she had her kid next to her, and then she ends up just busting out of there, and because her kid screams, but it ends up being a spider. But she's there to protect her kid, so you got to admire that. But Michael just didn't even want to mess with them for whatever reason. He just passed up. He's got other things to do. He's got a target in mind, and he's got certain time frame. He's got to be there by Halloween. He doesn't have time to mess around.
I like the double take though, the pause and look back, and she's looking into the mirror. That was through the crack. That was really well done.
Yeah, he's just like, see ya, I'm out of here. But yeah, and then so he ended up just taking her truck. So that's all he really wanted from them. And yeah, so we know he's there. And then next thing we got here is, but yeah, I just want to note that was creepy. So good horror thriller type of setting there. I thought was really well done. And then we get a nice callback to the original because we are introduced to Molly and John, which is Laurie's son and his girlfriend. And when they're in class and Laurie's the teacher or the professor or whatever, when they're in class, Molly's looking out the window and she sees Michael. And then when she looks back again, he's gone. So I thought that was kind of a cool callback to the original. Like I said, there are callbacks to the original Halloween because that's how when Laurie saw Michael, she saw him outside of the school through the window, and then she looks back and he's gone. So kind of cool things like that. They do. I feel like they're trying to recapture a lot of like the steps that the original took in a way. So, like I said, I noted down as I did notice those.
No, there's a couple more coming too.
Right.
I mean, they do a lot of new stuff with Michael. Coming later, but
Yeah.
it was a nice mix. It's a very signature Michael, though. I don't feel like Michael acts this way in a lot of other movies, but there's a nice blend.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Very
agree.
unique H2O, though.
I agree. Just his movement, and we'll get into talking about Michael as we usually do when we kind of dive further into the characters. Next thing I had noted here is the cameo by Janet Leigh, and she is known for Psycho, Jamie Lee Curtis's mother. She was the original Scream Queen or whatever in like I said, the movie Psycho. And I like that she she tells Laurie everyone's entitled to one good scare. I thought that was great callback to the original. I love that line that Sheriff Brackett uses. And then the car, and like when she's driving away, when Janet Leigh is driving away, it is the car from Psycho as well as the music from Psycho. So I thought that like the little tune that they play in Psycho. So that
I
was
did not
cool.
know that was her. That's interesting. I did not realize that was her.
Yep. So that was a cool cameo and a cool little nod to Psycho. So yeah, I like that. I thought that was cool. Like that do 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 do. I can't do it. I'm a fucking idiot. But no, I just it's a good tune. It's a good tune there from Psycho. And then next up we have we do see LL Cool J. He's talking to his wife on the phone. He's like trying to do dirty talk, but it's like from a novel, so it's kind of funny. So there's some little funny back and forth play between him and his wife over the phone. And Michael pulls up in his truck essentially, and he's kind of freaked out and spooked because no one's in the truck. He's the guard at the front of the campus or whatever, the dorms, and so he can let people in through the gates, but he goes out to investigate the truck. And while he's investigating the truck, like he's looking inside of it through the driver's side, you see Michael just stealthily pass behind him. I thought that was cool. Like he's really picking his spots here, which I think is interesting. Well, anyways, he goes back into the little guard shack, and then Michael's still playing with him. He even like knocks on the window and then disappears again. So a lot of little interplay there. So I thought that all was pretty neat.
It's also very rare footage of Michael Myers actually moving in and out of the way. Normally, when you look back, he's just gone, or you look back and he's just there. But it actually shows him like sneak back into the window spot. That was kind of cool. I always like it when you see Michael in a new situation. I'm always a big fan of that. I always want more of that. So that was tight.
Right, right. Sometimes you get him sneaking in like Snake. Sometimes you see him floating down a river. You know.
It's nice.
Yes. Maybe he's gonna do both at the same time. Get a cardboard box and ride a river to sneak into a base.
I'd pay money.
All right. So the next notable scene here is Laurie is talking to her boyfriend. I believe is Will. I think I caught his name was. And she's talking to her boyfriend, and she's not going by the name Laurie. That's important to note. She's in the police protection plan, so to speak, and she has a completely new name, new life, and obviously for her protection. But she's paranoid, and she thinks Michael's going to return, so she's kind of always looking over her shoulder. She sees him in, windows and stuff. She sees his reflection, so she's having nightmares. So clearly she's traumatized, obviously. So she's preparing for it, And she kind of tells this guy her story. She's very anti-Halloween, anti-celebrating. She's more of a tough mom on her kid just because, the events in her past definitely played a factor here. She's very protective, overly protective, clearly. And yeah, so she's telling the guy her story, tells him who she really is, that she's Laurie Strode, tells the story of what happened. He's heard of the story. He doesn't seem to believe her at first, but then he does take her seriously when she's done telling it. And yeah, so thought that was kind of an interesting moment, and was odd to hear the constant kissing noises as she's telling the story. I don't know, it was just odd.
Well, I think she says something really messed up and dark, and he responds with "Take off your blouse" or something.
Yeah, I know. He's just it's just like your typical guy, where it's just she's trying to be serious and tell him something, and he's just he just wants sex. So, anyways, so there's that moment, but then she does freak out because she realizes that when she was attacked, she was 17 years old, and she just realized that John is 17 years old. So now she's worried that tonight on Halloween, Michael will finally come. What she's feared and what she's had nightmares about will actually become reality. Then we cut over to the kids. They did not get on the bus. John was supposed to Yosemite, and he does not go. And they're going to party, him, his girlfriend Molly, and their friends. And Charlie goes to find the corkscrew, which made me instantly think of Friday the 13th Part 4 with Crispin Glover. Ted, or whatever the guy's name, where's the hell is the corkscrew? And that's when Jason just shoves it right into his hand or whatever. So that reminded me of that, but no, that's not what happens here. He actually drops the corkscrew into the garbage disposal, so we get the nice Final Destination type of scene where he goes to reach in to get the corkscrew. And it was at this moment where I really started to get not really bothered, but it was just they have they do the little camera pan and noise, and it's just they show Michael show up. Oh, he's here. He's watching this guy reach for the corkscrew. And it's you don't need to put a shot directly on Michael and then play a noise he's here. You could have just, don't you think it would have been way more effective if you have a shot from the sink looking at the guy, he's reaching for the corkscrew, and then in the background you see Michael slowly walk into the door frame, and then slowly, or even just observing the kid. Don't you think that would have just been a way better shot? Kid in the foreground, Michael in the background. We know he's there, and now you're oh shit, he better get that. He better pay attention. He better, be aware of his surroundings. But no, they just got to be oh, Michael's here. I don't know. It's just things like that I don't understand. To me, that should be horror filmmaking 101, and just an odd choice to do that.
There's a time and a place for it. I don't really think Michael makes sense to do that kind of stuff. I do like long shots where you see the villain for a long time, just getting closer and closer.
Right.
You just build that up. But that's not really what they did. It's just kind of
No, I know.
It felt very nonchalant and casual in a weird way.
I don't know. It's almost become a parody to a degree. It's here's Michael. We show Michael, and then we're going to pan back to the kids. So Michael's there. But instead of having the tension of you see Michael observing in the background, out of focus, and then he gets closer and closer and closer, it's instead of doing that, and let us see Michael, out of frame, and then, become further into focus, and let us recognize that, oh, he really is there, or he comes out of the shadows, and we just realize it, that he's there the whole time. Instead of letting us, the viewer, realize it, it's they just gotta throw it right in our face and here's Michael. I don't know. It's just, like I said, that in my opinion is such simple filmmaking that I don't understand why they didn't do that. Like I said, it's become a parody. It's instead of, it's ruining the surprise, I guess. It's just here's Michael. Here's Michael. Just throw him on the screen real quick, just so you're paying attention, rather than get bored because this kid's looking for his corkscrew. So, anyways, not to go on a tangent on that too much. So when the kid finally notices Michael, this is where we see the CGI mask. Did you notice the CGI mask?
I didn't notice the CGI mask. I did notice the eyes. The
Oh my
eyes,
gosh.
like I know you complain that you hate when they put a black cloth over the eye holes, but like there is so much eye flesh going on with this
Yeah,
mask.
this is the opposite. There's a way to do it, like where his eyes are in shadow, but you can see that there's eyes there, but they're not like these, like they might as well just put like LED lights around the eye holes and be like, here's his eyes, folks. Like there was,
Draw an arrow.
yeah, I know there was, like, like I said, this is the opposite. This is too far in the other direction. I like darkness, but then you can see the eyes if you get close enough, but not like flesh. You should just be able to see the eyes, not the like you see everything. You see his skin and everything around. I don't know. It's just I agree that that's really odd. But no, this is a CGI mask. So there's four separate masks in this movie that are used, and they all look different. And most of them are only used in like one or two shots, whereas he has a consistent mask throughout most of the other film or for the rest of the film. But yes, this is a full-on CGI mask because they shot it and they couldn't change it in time or whatever. I don't remember the exact reason, so they just CGI'd it, and it looks absolutely awful. Go back and watch this scene. It is just horrific CGI. Like it looks like somebody just photoshopped a mask onto him. Like it is not
Well,
good. This is not Incredible Hulk CGI. This is somebody that just went into Photoshop to quickly, like this is Justice League Superman mustache. Like it's
mustache.
obvious CGI.
Well, I'm double laughing over here because the way you said it was like there was a stutter. Like you should go back and watch this scene. It's like, I don't know why, but anyway, yeah. No, okay, I'll consider that.
Okay,
I
give me.
I
I'm
was
gonna.
aware of that, but I didn't think about it when I saw the movie because I think you told me that during the Halloween 2 review, maybe before we started recording. So I wasn't cognizant of that, but I may recheck that just to see. I
Okay,
may
here
look
you
for a
go.
compilation.
Here you go.
Yeah.
It's in the Discord. Blow
So
that
yeah.
up. Blow that up and look now.
It's like some E-Bombs World shit right
Yeah, I
there.
don't know what that is, but that is a CGI
It's like an
mask.
80s music video.
I know it's so bad. I can't believe that made it into the final cut, but
I got Take on Me in my head now. Yeah.
they couldn't go back and reshoot it, I guess. So yeah. Anyways, moving on from that, I thought that's hilarious. That is okay. I know I rip on the part 4 or the Halloween 4 mask a lot, but that is the worst mask, the CGI mask. That is definitely the absolute worst by far. Okay, so we get that UE CGI mask. Michael kills Charlie, and so his Charlie's girlfriend finds him in the dumbwaiter. So she climbs into the dumbwaiter to escape Michael, goes up, and then Michael cuts because she gets like her leg caught, and then she's getting out of the dumbwaiter, and she's struggling to get out, and Michael cuts the rope, and then the dumbwaiter goes down before she gets her leg all the way out. Then we get the gross owie of her essentially having her leg
Yeah,
snapped in half where it's dangling on by threads. And then she's crawling on the ground, bleeding profusely, and then comes up to Michael and is begging for her life. But then he proceeds to stab her not once. Like usually we are akin to Michael. He's pretty much one and done. He either suffocates you, or he slices your throat, or he stabs you, and that's it. Like this was just full on stabby, like anger stabby. You know.
which would have been good if they were consistent. Like if this was like a more frustrated, tired, I'm done with this shit, Michael, throughout the whole movie, I would have liked this a lot. But it's just this and one other scene, really, in my opinion. So I thought it was strange.
Right. So, yeah, he stabs her a bunch, and she's dead. So then we got John and Molly. They come across the blood trail when they're looking for their friends, and they think it's a joke at first. So they come across. This is actually a really cool scene. So they follow the blood trail, and then they come across her body. Like they turn on the light, and she's hanging from like a cord, like where a old time light bulb that's just hanging by a string or whatever. Sometimes you see that in like warehouses and whatnot or basements. And her body is like cut up in a way that she has a hole in her chest or stomach or whatever. So it's been hollowed out, and then the light bulb is inside, visible. So when they turn the light on, I don't know. I just thought that was kind of
It was good. I agree.
a cool looking scene, and we're getting that Michael that messes with people and creates Halloween ornaments out of people, and it's just that to me. Even though I don't see the stabby as Michael so much, that's not Michael to me. I did think the making a Halloween ornament out of her basically is very much up his corner. So
It restores the idea that this is kind of a craft to Michael, and he's very good at it.
yeah, and also that he's still got his like kid, trickery in him type of thing. So we get that, and then as John and Molly come across the body, they freak out obviously, and they get the hell out of there. And as they pass, they see Michael, and Michael has a head tilt, which is another callback to the original when he tilted his head or cocked his head or whatever, like a dog, when he looked at the guy that he stabbed up against the cabinet door and was just hanging there. So as they're fleeing, Michael gets a hold of Molly and is attacking her, but John, is a hero, so he saves her, fights Michael off, and gets stabbed himself. They get out of there though. They flee away from Michael. They go crazy. They're getting the keys. They get in, like, there's a 2-door system basically. There's a gate, and then right in front of their door, and then there's the door a few feet from that. So they get inside the gates, but they're struggling because Molly drops the keys. Stupid, but that's horror movies. And then so she drops the keys, she's trying to get it, Michael starts swiping, then we get a nice little Halloween 2 like kind of call out where he's just swiping endlessly at her, and then he's smart enough to grab the keys. So they're freaking out, they're banging on the door, and this would be another Halloween 1 callback, I would imagine, because he's somebody opened the damn door. Basically he's screaming, much like Laurie in the original was screaming for Tommy to open the door. And all of a sudden you see Laurie open the upstairs bedroom window, and she's very tired. No, I'm just kidding. No, so she comes and she lets both of them in at the last moment before Michael can get to him. And then right as she closes the door, because it's like a circular window on the door, right as she closes the door, she looks in the window, and then Michael's right on the other side. And yeah, this is where we see another actual one of the other masks that I mentioned. Just a brief shot. And it is a very plain mask compared to what they use in the full-on movie. Here, I'll send you a picture of that as well, real quick. Here's just a compilation of 3 of the ones from the movie. But yeah, the one on the one on the right is the what you see for a split second. So yeah, that very odd plain gets rid of all the features, and it's because the story behind that is the director, or I think it was the director, he thought, in his opinion, what he remembered of Michael Myers, he didn't really care to do the research, but in what his idea of Michael Myers is the mask had no features at all. It was just a plain white face, like with no expression at all. And it's like, so that's why it just looks so plain. And yeah, it does not look like Michael Myers. It just looks very odd. Like I don't know. I don't know what the hell that is.
Well, I find that hard to believe. I think probably there was someone who thought that, but I had trouble believing it was the director, just because this movie has a very good director. This movie has the best cinematography out of all, including the Carpenter one. I think the cinematography is so good. Now, nothing against Carpenter, but just he's working mostly in the dark. And it's still kind of early-ish Carpenter, but like this movie's beautiful. This movie looks so good. He's not as good as Atmosphere, but that Carpenter does that better, but that's a different category. So this guy's very competent. He did a lot of good movies, in my opinion. He did Friday the 13th Part 2 and 3.
Yep. Steve Miner, yeah.
What I like him for is Warlock, a very underrated horror film that doesn't get any attention for some reason. So it'd be so weird if you got that wrong. I gotta close this picture. I'm laughing at the one in the middle because I remember seeing that in the movie. Like the other masks, I kind of only remember vaguely, but this one I remember the scene we see this mask. And I'm like, what's going on with his mouth? He looks like someone just told him they canceled MASH. Like, I don't know what's going on with that mouth. It's like, what? I don't know. It's surprised. Why is the mask looking surprised? Like, that's the opposite of no features. But anyway, yeah, I don't know why they did that, but you're right. Clearly the other mask it doesn't work.
Yeah.
None of these really work.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty sure it was the director, but I could be wrong. I'll have to look a little bit further into that, but because I remember from documentaries, I'm pretty sure, because basically from what I remember, whether it's director or not, the nobody like agreed that it looked right. Like it just didn't look like Michael Myers, and I think they filmed more scenes with that, but then they ended up changing the props. Like the props department, the guy that made the mask, basically was just like, no, like they all agreed that it didn't work. Like that was not what Michael Myers was supposed to look like. So they eventually changed it to the one that you see for most of the film. But yeah, so just a little trivia there, just a little knowledge. I'm pretty sure it's a director, but yeah, I can always go back and look at that. Moving on, regardless. So
It could have been. I mean, nobody's perfect, but it could have very well been him. But I mean, we'll definitely research that later.
Anyway, so we get to the first confrontation between Laurie and Michael. So we finally get it, like for realsies. And yeah, so now this is kind of where, in my opinion, the movie really starts to pick up right now. Once we get Michael and Laurie back to not one on one, but back in the mix here, like the chase is on. This is where I thought it really started to pick up. And I thought it was funny that once again another callback to the original. Laurie immediately puts the kids in the closet. And they're just like, you hide in here, you hide in here. So I thought that was good. We do see Will get killed by Michael, and Laurie knocks Michael down with the fire extinguisher. Well, I should say Will does shoot, if that's his name, does shoot LL Cool J accidentally, thinking it was Michael, and then Laurie knocks out Michael with the fire extinguisher because she tricks him, made him think that they were in a closet, and he just busts through that closet. Those kids were not safe at all because he takes less than 2 seconds to get through the closet door. But it was the wrong closet door, so she tricked him, knocks him out the fire extinguisher. He's down. She runs, like 15, 20 feet down the hall, and they're actually in the closet down the hall. She opens it up, tells him, we got to go. Get the hell out of here. And then I love this shot because in the background, this is another great shot where you see in the background, Michael sits up and then just gets up. Like we see him, so then we get an immediate sense of urgency. So I thought that was a really cool shot. Laurie, so they escape basically. She tells the kids to get in the Jeep or whatever and at the gate and tells them to get the hell out of here. Tells Molly to drive, John to get the hell out of there, get some ambulances, get the police, all of that, send them back, and she's going to stay and fight. So I thought that was a good direction for her character. I mean, even when they have their initial confrontation, when she opens the door and then they first face off, she immediately pulls out a gun, but he's gone. So it's like she has been prepared for this, and I like that this is a Laurie that is going to stay and fight and do what she has to do to finish the job and not live in fear anymore. Whereas in the original, we constantly saw her, whenever she would beat Michael, like knock him down or you thought he was dead, she'd drop his weapon and then she would just walk away or stumble away. Like this is not a Laurie that is taking any crap, and she's taking it to the next level. She's being the aggressor. And I like that about her. And we'll kind of talk about that a little bit further. We got a little bit more here to go. So she stays to finish the fight, as I said. And then we have a sequence of Laurie is hiding under some tables, basically trying to avoid Michael because she's going back to when she went back to pick a fight with him. She was carrying the axe. She calls him out, but then he knocks the axe out of her hands, and she has to kind of go on the defense there. So she is underneath some tables. There's a whole big room with several tables with cloths on them. So she's kind of trying to hide under several ones. She keeps moving over, crawling under other ones. But Michael's actually on top of the table, and this was a great shot. I thought that whole scene was set up really nicely. This was actually a scene, I can't remember if it was Halloween 4 or 5, but this was actually a scene originally written for Jamie. For, like I said, it was either Halloween 4 or 5, the writer of one of those films. I can't quite remember which one, but it was never filmed because they just ran out of budget or time or whatever. But they actually, Mustafa Akkad liked that so much that they ended up using it here. So I thought that was kind of cool. So I remember in the documentary, the writer felt quite flattered that they used something that he wrote that never made it in for another movie. So he thought that was pretty cool. So I thought that was an effective scene. I enjoyed Laurie knocking over the knife set and then immediately chucking knives at Michael as he's walking in.
I'm kind of conflicted on that. It's just,
it was a cool scene. I mean, she was pretty inaccurate with most of those. Like, she just threw them all and missed with most of them, if not all. But yeah,
I mean, even if she hits them, like, if you hit anything other than like an eye, like, it's not gonna do anything. Like, you need real force to penetrate a rib cage, or anything, any part of the body.
Speaking of which, so Michael is now, he's looking for her and he's going down a hall, and now we have Laurie jumping out and attacking him. And I love this scene. This is probably one of my favorite of the whole movie. Laurie is just unloading on Michael. She takes like a nice sized knife herself and she just starts stabbing very aggressively. I just thought that was awesome. It was just like one of those get it. Like, she's just being a total badass, stabbing him profusely multiple times, pushing him off the ledge. He crashes down through the table. I just thought that was an awesome scene for her in general. So,
agreed.
Yeah. And then this is another one where she's going to finish the job. She is not like this. If this was Laurie in the first movie, after she stabbed him multiple times, knocks him off the edge, like, she would have just been done. But on there, pulls the knife out of him, and then she's going to essentially, finish the job, slice his throat, whatever she's got to do. But then as she's, pulling her hand up to finish the job, we have LL Cool J, who's not actually dead, come and stop her and says, he's dead, let's go, let's get the hell out of here. And he pulls her away. And then we see the police arrive, ambulance arrive, John and Molly are there as well, and everybody's being taken care of, and they're taking Michael away. But Laurie's like, you know what? Once again, being a badass, she grabs the axe, she pulls one of the officer's guns out, and she says, nope, I'm taking them. So they finish loading them in. She gets in the van with just Michael. He's in a body bag, and she gets the hell out of there. And it's like, she does not want to see him, taken and then just escape again, or taken, presumed dead, only to escape. She doesn't want any of that. She wants to end it for sure and wants that resolution. So she drives away, and as she's driving away, she keeps checking back to see if the body bag is going to move at all. And she keeps checking, and eventually it does, and she catches it. And so Michael gets out of the body bag, and then as he lunges toward her, she immediately slams on the brakes, and he crashes through the windshield. Awesome. I love that, and just looked good. And then she just smashes right into him, kind of a callback to Halloween Part 4 with Rachel. Crashes right into him. They go right, like, they essentially go like off the side of the road, off a hill, a cliff, whatever, and roll down several times, and he gets smashed up against a tree, and she gets thrown from the vehicle. She grabs the axe. She's going up to Michael. He's kind of like he seems surprised, and he's reaching for his mask. He's reaching out towards her, and she kind of reaches out towards him in a nice little touching moment, but then decapitates him. You get the Halloween theme, and yeah, that is the movie. Michael Myers' head just got cut off. That's the movie. All right, now let's get into overall thoughts, characters. What do you got?
Well, the last 20 minutes are much better than everything else.
Agreed.
I mean, if we go by your summary omits a lot of the Josh Hartnett stuff,
which is a good thing.
Yeah, which is a good thing. It's man, I am so tired of young teenagers in small towns, like in small suburbia Midwestern towns. Oh my gosh, am I tired of that? So the Josh Hartnett stuff really weighs down the movie quite a bit.
Yeah,
And the Jamie Lee Curtis stuff is so strong. And
agreed.
I don't even have anything against Josh Hartnett. I think as an actor, he's fine. He doesn't make good movies. I don't know why he doesn't. I wish he did. Like he's a good actor, but you can't get a good script.
Yeah.
So I think it really hurt this movie that you bring back Jamie Lee Curtis, make her the stand-in hero, and then you write in a son character who's just a dick to her. Like I feel like that I didn't need that subplot, but I mean that's obviously there's more to the movie than that. I like I said, the last 20 minutes are really good. I thought LL Cool J was good. I liked him. He added a lot of personality to the movie.
Yeah, I mean, this was Laurie's movie, absolutely. This was bringing her back. I mean, that's what they were doing with this. This is essentially what the new Halloween movie's doing, in that they are just like, you know what? We made all these other films. We went down several roads that they probably regretted. So now they're like, let's get Jamie Lee Curtis back. They wrote a script that clearly she was on board for, and for one reason or another, and she came back 20 years later to essentially put this to rest. And yeah, I thought it was strong for her. I didn't like, her boyfriend stuff. I didn't like the kids stuff. It was all about her and Michael, and that's why definitely I agree. The last 20 minutes of the film are what make the film. I mean, you could honestly had just that, like a 30-minute short film with just her and Michael, and it would have been probably more solid from start to finish, because the rest of it just seems filler. And I mean, even like the stuff with the nurse, like that wasn't really necessary. I know why it was there, so he could find her, find Laurie. But yeah, I don't know. It's just, and I did like the bathroom scene, like I said, but it wasn't all bad before that or anything like that. But yeah, it just kind of drags. I didn't find myself too invested in this one, except for those last 20 minutes. I was pretty glued to the screen. I liked it. I liked how Michael looked in this one, the actual official mask that they used for most of it. He actually moved more like Michael from Halloween 1, the original. Like, Michael isn't always just like, I'm gonna move baby steps and I'm gonna hold the knife to my chest and move very, very, very slowly until it's time to like actually move my body quickly with my arms and stuff. That's not how Michael always goes. Like, if you remember in the original, like the way Nick Castle portrayed it is there was times where he was power walking. Like, he's not completely incapable of that. So I liked seeing a Michael that was more, his stature was more aggressive, more like, I'm gonna come get you, but I'm still gonna take my time while I do it, rather than I'm very slowly, like a turtle. Like, you know what I mean? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, the part 4 and 5 do very much the ghost thing,
Yeah,
almost like the Jason thing, where I'm walking slowly, but I'm going to catch you
exactly.
anyway.
Exactly.
Um, yeah, I don't know. Like one of the things I do like about this movie is just the intensity and ferocity of Michael, and just the strong performance of Jamie Lee Curtis. Um, what two things I really don't like about this movie is I didn't, even though I like the last 20 minutes quite a bit. I'm very torn on the climax. I'm very torn on that last like minute and a half of the movie, because this movie retcons so much. It retcons 4, 5, and 6, and whatever our listeners may think of those movies set a lot of groundwork and did their best to kind of build on the mystery of Michael Myers. And if you're going to throw all that away, if you're going to toss out
It's
three
got to be
movies,
worth it, yeah.
it's got to be worth it. And you got it. Now you have to do the work they did. You have to do 3 movies of work, or at least one really good movie of work. Because it's like, okay, well, if those movies don't exist, then how did he survive the fire in part 2? Why is he immortal? Why does he have super strength? Where has he been all these years? And none of it's answered. You threw away the answers, but you didn't replace them. So that is a really sore point for me. I hate that. I'm not, like I said, you don't have to even really answer the questions. Maybe talk about it though. Maybe bring up why is he not on fire? Maybe just have
Why
Jamie
is he
Curtis
not on
address
fire?
that. I just feel like that's a good question.
20 years later. Yep, here's his ashes that are just still sitting on the ground.
I mean, and presumably, I think it's implied that Loomis did die in that fire. Am I right?
I think so, yeah. If they explained it, I didn't quite catch it. Like I said, in the beginning of the film, I was a lot less invested than I was towards the end. Um, so I might have missed that detail, but that's my guess. Is that that's what they're explaining, or
So
that's
I
what they're going with?
I'd really like to know why he has eyes. I think that's a fair question. I don't think I'm being nitpicky. He should. I want to know why he has eyes after being shot in the eyes. I don't get that anyway. But you see my point. I just feel like if you're going to throw away, if you're going to be pompous enough to say that the last two Loomis movies weren't good and should be thrown out, you better make a good fucking movie. You better answer all the questions they tried to answer. You better answer all the questions that Paul Rudd tried to answer. And if you don't, then it's just like, oh, what was the fucking point? So that's really disappointing. That really marks hard against the movie. So that brings me to the end. Why do I not like the climax? Well, can anyone tell me why Michael Myers was reaching his hand out to Laurie? Can anyone give me an answer on that?
Well, I mean, I movie goes. I don't know if
Yeah,
you've
I kind
seen
of
it,
do
but
too.
yeah. So
Someone
I mean, yeah, we don't need
very
to
briefly
spoil it
explain
here,
it to
but
me. Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, that's assuming that they wrote like they knew where the next movie was going to go, like how they're going to explain, Michael moving on from this movie with his head chopped off. That's assuming that they knew how they were going to explain that, which I don't necessarily know that they did. I didn't know. I'm not aware of that they planned the whole twist that they reveal in the next one. I'm not entirely. I don't think that was the case. I thought this was supposed to be the end, but if it is the end, I completely agree with you. Why is he reaching out for her? Like, is it a play? Is he doing it to trick her? Is he doing it so that she'll come close and then, put the axe down, then he can, kill her? I don't know. To me, it's very unMichael to play possum like that. Like, he doesn't, I can't recall him ever doing that before. Like, is he capable of, like, trying to act like he's changed his ways and then he lures somebody into letting their guard down and then takes them? I don't know. To me, that's we've had moments like with Jamie where she got Michael to kind of stop in his tracks and like clearly thinking about something. But this is like the complete opposite. This is Michael trying to stop somebody from harming him and him playing that moment up where like the emotional moment. So yeah, I just thought it was really, really odd. I don't really get him reaching out to her. I also don't get the reaching at his mask. Like that to me, like I said, I know the twist ending and we won't get into that, but it's like if this is truly Michael, why is he like when he wakes up he looks shocked. Like, "Oh, where am I?
He's
Like,
like
who
touching
am
his
I?"
mask. Like
Yeah,
I'm wearing
like
a mask.
yeah, I know. It's really awkward. I don't get it.
Yeah, just I mean, you could have set it up. Like if there was some exposition to explain where Michael's been and maybe introduce some new information about him, maybe his response while he was all Ben Tramered against that tree may have made sense. But they don't tell us. They don't give us any information. I don't even know why, because the director is a very smart dude. I have a lot of respect for him. So I don't know what happened here. But that's really disappointing. So those are my marks against the movie. There's, like I said, it's beautifully shot. The movie looks gorgeous.
Yeah, it's
It
well.
does fall a lot better than the first one did, and maybe that's being unfair, but it's true.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly.
The evening lighting, like the dusk, like the 6 p.m. kind of lighting. Oh my
Oh, I
god, it
know. I
looks
can
so
actually see things in this movie. Like, we didn't really talk about it in Halloween 6 too much because there was just other things to talk about. But the movie was
good.
so dark. Like, I couldn't see what was going on half the time. And it wasn't just because of the quality of the movie. It was just dark. It was just so a lot of dark. But yeah, I mean, I don't really have much else to say. I mean, you covered it. We kind of covered it. I thought Laurie was strong. I thought her character was really strong. I like the less of a victim this time around and more of a, I'm going to take this accountability, or not accountability, but she's going to take a stand this time. She's not going to just try and get away. This time she's outright trying to get rid of Michael. She realizes, It's like you've said before, like, is anybody going to treat him like he's supernatural? Clearly she did in this film, because she knew, oh, just because I stabbed him 6 times and then pushed him off of this ledge and so on and so forth, she knew that that wasn't going to be enough. She wanted to finalize it and make sure that it was done, cut his head off. There's no coming back from that. Like, I like that. I like that part about her. I like the way Michael was acting and his mannerisms, his look. Rest of the characters didn't really care for. It's our first Halloween film with Michael Myers that's missing Loomis, and I feel like Laurie did well to carry that, but it was still, he was still missed, in my opinion. It's hard to replace that character, or just they didn't even really replace it. But I thought Laurie did good at stepping up to the plate. But I agree, though. I mean, they did. I don't like the idea of replacing Jamie and all that. But I mean, I guess the movies still exist. It's not like they don't exist, regardless of what's canon or whatever. I mean, those movies still exist, so there's still that timeline or whatever you want to call it. So I still appreciate what they did in those. And is this worth it? If you just did this movie and you didn't continue it with the next one, I would say maybe, because they brought it back to Laurie and they kind of took what worked about the franchise and tried to recapture that. But it doesn't end here, so they kind of just, well, we'll save that for the next one. But yeah.
It's just a really poor gesture to Donald Pleasance, because it's like, 10 years ago, they're like, come on, Donald Pleasance, do these new Halloween movies with us. They're going to be so great. We'll have so much fun. Then he dies, and then they're like, those movies were shit. Let me show you a real Halloween movie. It's just kind of the fuck you to Donald Pleasance. I don't like it at all. But
well, I mean, I don't think it was 4 and 5 that made him do that. I think it was 6. I mean, if we're really looking at it,
yeah,
it's not that they couldn't have written Laurie back into the story where Jamie existed, because they could have easily just, Laurie was still there. She was presumed dead. That's why Jamie was being taken care of by another family. And all you had to do is, Laurie's in, maybe I don't know what the hell happened, but at one point she goes into protective services, and she gives up Jamie because she wants her to have a better life. Whatever the case, maybe it's your reasoning that she just wasn't fit to be a parent at that time, but then she has her son John at a later time when she's more stable. Whatever the reason.
Or just take out Josh Hartnett. Just take him out. Problem solved.
Yeah, I mean, either way, I think it's the fact that they went the cult direction in 6 that they really didn't like. So I think that was probably where they definitely were like, let's just restart this. Let's kind of pretend those didn't exist. Let's go a different direction. Is because once you go the cult direction and you have Loomis as a, where they leave all those characters off, that's when they kind of put the cart before the horse, so to speak. They jumped the shark, and they didn't know how to write themselves out of it. So they're like, yeah, let's just get Jamie Lee Curtis back. Let's go back to Laurie Strode. Let's go back to basics, basically. Anyways, so, but I agree. I mean, I would have preferred keep Jamie, write Laurie back in. Write them both in. Let's have Jamie and Laurie. But let's just pretend Halloween 6 didn't exist, and let's go from there. And you can have Jamie and you can have Laurie in the same movie. To me, that's that's even cooler to think about, Mother, finding her daughter, and that she gave up for whatever reason or was taken from her. We don't know. But, yeah. Missed opportunity, I guess. But this is the movie we got.
Quick shout out to Jodie Lynn O'Keefe, by the way. I thought she was good.
Which one was she?
She's the one of the teenagers, but the one with the fucked up leg.
Oof, yeah.
Yeah, she did a good job, in my opinion, and she's kind of hot.
Are you trying to score brownie points here? You're like, I hope she's listening and available.
I thought she gave a great performance. And she's kind of hot too.
She's like, you're like, she stole the show. Like the way she was crawling with her leg hanging half off. Oh my, no, like I don't think Jamie Lee could have done that.
She was good though. She was definitely. I mean, no offense to the other lead teenage actress, but like, I didn't remember her like after the movie was over. Like
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Jodie Lynn O'Keefe, if I'm even saying that right, was much more like, I think, representative of that like late '90s like high school chick. I think she did that very well. If you ever saw The Craft, that's the vibe I got from it.
Yeah, I got what
So
you're saying.
good stuff.
I got what you're saying. Yep, and I have seen that movie. You're talking about the goth chick or whatever. But
Yep.
yeah, anyways, so that's our thoughts on the movie. All we really have left is to give our scores on it. Do you want to take this one first? Or do you want me to go first?
I'll take it. D.
D.
That
All right.
that yeah.
So I'm gonna go C minus on this one. I think the extra 20 minutes or whatever, or like the finalizing 20 minutes, still makes it enjoyable to me, but overall, not the best film. Minus for me. It's in between a C minus and a D plus, so I'm kind of right there with you on it. And I think just all in all, was it really worth it? Probably not. I like the idea of bringing Jamie Lee Curtis back into the fold, Laurie Strode back into the fold. It was done well when it was done well, but when it wasn't done well, it just wasn't interesting. It wasn't entertaining. It was just there. It was a movie with a ton of filler in it, and out of an hour and a half, it had 20 to 30 minutes that were worth watching. So
If
I
you
agree
take
with
out
you
the
there.
Josh Hartnett stuff, I'd be happy to raise my score to a C plus, but there's a lot of Josh Hartnett stuff, so it's gonna have to remain a D.
Sure. So D and C minus, and that'll wrap it up for Halloween H2O. So that means what we have next is Halloween Resurrection. I hope
Yay.
you're ready. Have you seen Halloween
Yay.
Resurrection?
No.
Okay. Well, I've seen it a couple times. Uh, yeah, it's another one that I don't really watch start to finish. So it'll be interesting sitting down and actually focusing on it. So look forward to that, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you comment below. Let us know what you think of this movie, what you thought of Laurie's performance. Michael, was it really worth it? What did you think of Josh Hartnett? Just let us know all of the thoughts on what you felt about Halloween H2O. On that note, we will catch you next time with Halloween Resurrection. Take care.
See you later, everybody.